Breaking today, Meghan Markle pushes back against her Diana death stunt in Paris. Prince William, we're told, is so horrified, so mortified, so traumatized.
It was posted at 9:43 p.m, September 29th, right beside the tunnel where Princess Diana died. The clip lasted just 24 seconds, but it has shaken the royal family. Meghan Markle's late-night Instagram reel, a short video of her lounging in a limousine, champagne glass in hand, as Paris glowed outside, triggered a storm of anger that spread from social media to the heart of Kensington Palace. By dawn on the 30th of September 2025, British tabloids were already running identical headlines. The Paris video, William's fury. Within hours, Palace insiders confirmed that the Prince of Wales had seen the post and that his reaction was instant and visceral. According to one senior aide, William was shown the reel during a morning briefing. He went completely still, the aide recalls. Then he said, "Take it down. Now." To William, this was not merely poor taste. It was a wound reopened, an image of his mother's final route turned into a social media backdrop. Royal correspondent Elaine Marwick explains, "For years, William has protected the Paris site as sacred ground. Seeing it used for glamour, even unintentionally, felt like a violation." Inside Kensington, Catherine reportedly urged calm. She told her husband, "Don't let anger write the next headline." But those close to the couple say the hurt ran deeper than headlines. By the evening of September 30th, the post had passed 3 million views and more than 400,000 comments, half of them accusing Meghan of insensitivity. Supporters countered that she couldn't possibly know the location, claiming it was just a random street shot after a fashion forum event. Still, the timeline told another story. Data analysts noted the GPS tag showed Pont de l'Alma, less than 400 meters from the tunnel entrance. The same night, Harry and Meghan's spokesperson declined to comment. In Windsor, a former communications advisor described the mood as controlled outrage. They wanted no public statement, no escalation, but behind the scenes, phones were ringing. William's team contacted Meta directly to report the clip. Meanwhile, commentators on British morning shows were divided. Some dismissed the uproar as tabloid theatre. Others saw it as the breaking point of a fragile peace. Royal historian Dr. Felix Warren noted, "Reconciliation was fragile already. This, of all things, reignited Diana's ghost. For Meghan, silence became her defence." The video stayed on Instagram for 36 hours before disappearing without explanation on October 1st. No apology was issued. A California-based friend told the entertainment outlet Showscope she was devastated by the backlash. She didn't mean harm. She thought it looked beautiful. But in London, another palace insider had a harsher take. "Intent doesn't matter when you play with memory. To the prince, that place is a grave, not a backdrop." By October 2nd, the palace press office was under pressure. William refused interviews, cancelled a scheduled public appearance, and privately told aides he was done making excuses. Catherine maintained her official schedule, smiling for cameras during a children's education visit, but observers noted her ringless right hand and unusually cold demeanour. The narrative was set. Across networks, commentators echoed the same question. Was the Paris video a careless coincidence or a calculated strike? That question, more than the clip itself, became the heartbeat of the story. Because what followed over the next 10 days would expose how a single social media post could reopen royal wounds, threaten a brotherhood, and test the limits of forgiveness within the House of Windsor. Thank you for watching this special edition of Sussex Side-Eye Drama. For full coverage of what happened inside Kensington after the Paris video, including Catherine's pivotal role and the silent punishment that followed, subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay tuned. Because when a royal breaks silence, it's never by accident. October 2nd, 2025. 2 days after Meghan Markle's Paris video was posted, it was still online, still gathering views, still dividing the public, and still haunting the corridors of Kensington Palace. By sunrise, the reel had crossed 4 million views, comment threads filled with disbelief and anger. "She smiled where Diana died," one comment read, a single sentence that captured what the palace could not yet say aloud. Inside Kensington, tension was thick enough to taste. Phones buzzed with updates, every headline more accusatory than the last. An email circulated quietly through internal staff channels. No comment, no response, no acknowledgement of the Duchess of Sussex. It was unsigned, but everyone knew whose silence it carried. At 9 in the morning, the inner circle gathered. William stood near the window, shoulders tight, arms folded. The communications director briefed him on the numbers. Millions of views, reposts on celebrity accounts, French tabloids calling it provocative art, American commentators praising the cinematic luxury of the shot. The data meant nothing to him. Only one detail mattered: the coordinates of the video's location, less than 400 meters from the tunnel where his mother's life ended. He listened, then spoke quietly. If they can measure distance, then they know how close she went. When an aide suggested that deleting the post might calm the outrage, William's response was immediate. "No," he said. "Let it stay. Let the world see what she's done." Across the table, Catherine said nothing. Her expression was calm, almost detached, but those who know her say her silence carried more weight than any reprimand. She had warned him the night before that the video would not vanish easily. "It's the internet," she'd said. "Nothing disappears." A short while later, another aide proposed a gentle public statement, something to show empathy without fanning the flames. William read the first line, then pushed the paper aside. "We will not dignify it," he said. "We will dignify her memory." From that moment, the tone inside Kensington changed. No more briefings, no more calls to the press. The order was simple. They would say nothing. Silence would be the weapon. By midday, the video had gone global. Every channel replayed the same 24 seconds. Meghan reclining in the limousine, the Eiffel Tower flashing behind her, the faint reflection of the Pont de l'Alma in the glass. American anchors called it misunderstood. French hosts shrugged it off as un malentendu. But in London, commentators called it a desecration. Sky News opened its broadcast with one line. For Prince William, the tunnel is not a backdrop. It is a grave. Requests for palace comment flooded in. None were answered, but behind the iron gates, the fury was reaching its peak. At 1:17 that afternoon, William instructed his private secretary to contact Meta through official diplomatic channels, asking for a review of the post. Given its sensitive location, several hours later a reply arrived, cold, bureaucratic, and devastatingly indifferent. "The post does not violate our community guidelines." William's reaction, according to one aide, was chillingly quiet. "So the world has rules for everything," he said, "except respect." As the rain began to fall outside, Catherine entered his study. For a long moment she watched him pacing near the desk, phone still in his hand. "You can't fight algorithms," she said gently. He stopped walking, turned toward her, and replied, "Then I'll fight silence with silence." She looked at him for a while, then said, "Let it be legacy, not vengeance." He nodded, but didn't promise. That evening, Catherine reviewed preparations for the Diana Legacy Initiative. She made quiet changes, removing a photograph of William and Harry from the entrance display, replacing it with a single portrait of Diana in Lagos, holding a child. "Keep it about her," she told the curator. No one else. Meanwhile, in California, the Sussex estate was shuttered and silent. Friends told reporters that Meghan was shocked by the reaction, that she never meant to offend. But her silence, like William's, was its own statement. Harry tried to reach his brother again that night. The call went unanswered. By then, British broadcasters were already framing the story as a rupture with no return. Historian Felix Warren said on BBC Radio, "William sees this as sacrilege. Meghan sees it as coincidence. The tragedy is, neither side can see the other anymore." In Kensington, the night stretched long. Staff moved softly through the hallways. A few stopped outside the study and heard nothing. No voices, no pacing, only the faint scratch of a pen on paper. Later, one aide said, "When he stops speaking, that's when we worry." Hell. At 11:12 that night, William signed a handwritten directive. All official communication to focus on domestic duties and legacy commitments. No engagement with controversy or online discourse. It was both an order and a declaration. He would not fight her in public. He would not speak her name. He would erase her by omission. Outside, the rain had stopped. The city lights reflected against the palace windows. Calm, cold, unyielding. The next morning, the press would report that Kensington Palace had chosen dignity. But those inside knew better. This was not dignity. It was control. It was anger reshaped into strategy. The video remained online, its view count climbing by the hour. But inside the palace, it was already being buried, not by deletion, but by deliberate silence. The fury of the heir had settled, not in words, but in resolve. And that resolve would soon become policy, quiet, calculated, and absolute. Because for William, some wounds demand not noise, but absence. October 3rd, 2025. 2 full days since Meghan Markle posted her Paris video, and it was still there, still public, still rising. By morning, the view count had crossed 5 million. The caption beneath the short clip read, "About last night. Thank you at Pippi Piccioli and at Balenciaga. I've missed you, France, thanks for the love." It sounded innocent enough, grateful, stylish, effortless, but for the royal family, those few lines felt like a taunt, a message wrapped in glamour, published less than 400 meters from the tunnel where Princess Diana had died. Across Britain, television panels dissected every word. "Thank you, Balenciaga. Thank you, Paris," one anchor said on air. She's thanking the city that broke William's heart. Social media turned into a battlefield. Some saw the post as tone-deaf. Others defended it as coincidence. But the silence from Kensington Palace only deepened the tension. Inside those palace walls, the atmosphere was frost. William read the morning briefings without a sound. Catherine poured tea, glanced at him, and said quietly, "It's still up." He didn't look up. "It will stay," he replied. "She's waiting for a reaction. She won't get one." But he was already reacting, not in words, but in decisions. All morning, the royal household began recalibrating itself. Media teams received revised schedules. Digital staff were told to remove archived posts that included Meghan. A memo went out to event coordinators. No references to the Duke or Duchess of Sussex in forthcoming communications. By noon, the operation had a name among staff, the Freeze. Catherine called a quiet meeting in her private office. The group included senior advisors, 2 communications officers, and a long-serving secretary from the late Queen's household. Her tone was careful, deliberate. "This isn't revenge," she told them. "This is preservation. If we speak, we dignify it. If we ignore it, we define it." While she spoke, William remained in the adjoining room, standing before a wall-sized map of upcoming royal engagements. His expression was blank, but his hands were clenched. An aide who entered briefly to deliver an update said later, "He wasn't shouting. He didn't need to. Everyone could feel what he was thinking." That afternoon, television producers across London prepared special editions, The Tunnel That Haunts the Crown, Meghan's Paris Mistake, The Silence of the Heir. The story had become unstoppable. In California, the Sussex home remained quiet. A close friend of Meghan's told Page Scene magazine, "She's devastated by the backlash. She thought it looked beautiful. She didn't think about the tunnel." She refuses to delete it. She says taking it down would make her look guilty. Back in London, aides watched as the comment section on Meghan's post exploded. Hundreds of thousands of messages an hour, ranging from sympathy to fury. By evening, one top comment read simply, "This isn't Paris fashion, it's Paris tragedy." Inside Kensington, Catherine was drafting invitations for the Diana Legacy Initiative scheduled for the following week. Every line was intentional, every name was deliberate. When asked if Harry would be invited, she looked at the planner and said, "There's no need to extend invitations that won't be accepted." William joined her later that night. "She still hasn't removed it," he said. Catherine didn't look up from her notes. "Then it stays," she replied. "Let's outlast it." For a moment, he said nothing. Then he asked, "What happens if she posts again?" Catherine paused, then answered, "Then she'll be talking to herself." End free. The following morning, October 4th, the consequences of the freeze began to take form. The Royal Foundation website quietly removed older press releases mentioning Meghan's early patronage. Social media channels switched focus entirely to domestic charity work. In every official publication, the Wales family stood alone. The British press noticed quickly. The Times described it as a digital excommunication. The Telegraph called it punishment by omission. Through it all, Meghan's post remained untouched. No apology, no clarification, not even a new photo to bury it on her grid. She appeared unbothered, but those close to her claimed otherwise. "She checks the comments constantly," one insider told ET Europe. "She's shocked that they've gone completely silent. She thought they'd defend her, or at least respond, but they've cut her off completely." Inside Kensington, silence had become ritual. Every staff meeting began with the same reminder. No mention of the Sussexes, not even in private correspondence. Catherine enforced it gently but firmly. "We move forward," she would say. "The moment we look back, we lose." That weekend, public sympathy swung heavily toward the Prince and Princess of Wales. Polling showed that 75% of respondents viewed the video as insensitive. Editorials praised William's restraint, describing him as a man who refuses to feed chaos. On October 6th, final preparations began for the Legacy Initiative. Catherine oversaw floral arrangements herself, white lilies, Diana's favourite, and insisted that no seat be left unassigned. No symbolic gestures, no open spaces. "We honour her through completion," she told the decorator. That night, William stayed up late in his study, scrolling through the same Instagram post. The caption glowed on the screen. "About last night. Thank you at PP Piccioli and at Balenciaga. I've missed you, France. Thanks for the love." He read it several times, his reflection caught in the dark glass of the tablet. "She thanked the city," he murmured. "She thanked the city." Catherine entered quietly, a stack of notes in hand. "Come to bed," she said softly. He didn't move. "She'll never delete it," he whispered. "Then stop waiting for her to," she replied. He set the tablet aside, finally turning away from the screen. Outside, rain fell against the palace windows, quiet, deliberate, endless. The freeze was complete. No anger, no statement, no contact, just distance. The post remained where it had always been, pinned, gleaming, alive, but inside Kensington, it was already treated as a relic, something dead. And yet, beneath the calm surface, everyone sensed it. Silence wasn't the end. It was the warning before the next move, because the heir had chosen not to fight online. He would fight through legacy, through memory, through everything that still belonged to Diana. The countdown to October 8th had begun. October 4th, 2025. By the fourth morning, the video had stopped being a post. It had become a symbol. The image of Meghan in that limousine, legs crossed, Paris glowing behind her, still lived on every timeline. The caption was polite, even cheerful, but its effect was anything but. 5.8 million views and counting. and no sign it would ever come down. British papers no longer called it a scandal, they called it irreparable. One morning, anchor on ITV said bluntly, "This may be the moment reconciliation truly dies." Another added, "If William ever forgives her, it won't be in this lifetime." Inside Kensington Palace, the word reconciliation had quietly vanished from official vocabulary. It had once been the palace's favourite term, a diplomatic promise whispered in interviews and annual briefings. Now it felt toxic, a reminder of something naive. Catherine reviewed her calendar at breakfast, pen in hand, crossing out a charity event first launched in collaboration with Meghan 6 years earlier. "We'll relaunch it next spring," she said, without shared patronage. She didn't look at William when she said it. She didn't need to. He nodded once, still reading the morning papers, still refusing to turn the page. That same morning, Harry tried again. According to a royal correspondent from the Telegraph, he had sent his brother a long message the night before, apologising for the misunderstanding and pleading for a private meeting before the Diana Legacy Initiative. The message was read at 7:42 a.m. and left unanswered. A palace insider later confirmed, "The message wasn't deleted, but it wasn't answered either. That's how William closes a door." By midday, the palace had settled into a strange rhythm, silence as structure. Aides avoided questions. Security staff were told to turn away camera crews from the outer gates. Reporters lingered for hours, hoping for movement. None came. Catherine spent the afternoon in the East Gallery, where final preparations for the Legacy event were underway. Sunlight filtered through the high windows, falling on rows of black and white portraits of Diana. Catherine paused before one, the Princess of Wales in Angola, walking through a minefield in a visor and white shirt. "Keep this one at the centre," she told the curator. "It's courage, not tragedy." Later that day, the communications team met briefly with her. They warned that the event could be overshadowed. "Public attention is still on the video," one advisor said. "If we ignore it completely, people will think we're running from it." Catherine shook her head. "We're not running. We're reclaiming." That evening, she and William walked together through the nearly completed exhibit. The quiet between them felt heavy, but not hostile. For days, their conversations had been short, reduced to the practical. Schedules, speeches, headlines. Now, standing before a photograph of Diana holding her sons as children, the silence softened. "She'd hate all of this," Catherine said quietly. William didn't answer at first. "She'd hate the noise," he said finally. "She'd hate the spectacle." It was the closest either of them had come to admitting how much this still hurt. Meanwhile, across the ocean, the Sussex residents remained silent to the press, but sources spoke for them. A friend told Vanity UK that Meghan was deeply hurt by the portrayal of her as manipulative. Another source claimed she had no intention of removing the video because doing so would signal guilt. The headlines multiplied by the hour. Meghan's silence speaks volumes. On Sky News, royal analyst Marianne Foster said, "What we're seeing is the evolution of punishment in the modern monarchy. They no longer exile, they erase." At 10 p.m, Catherine received confirmation that her quiet visit to Althorpe, Diana's resting place, was approved for the following morning. She told no one except her assistant. When William asked later where she would be, she only said, "Somewhere peaceful." The next morning, October 5th, she drove out before sunrise. The estate was empty, except for mist and the slow ripple of water over the ornamental lake. She placed a bouquet of white roses near the memorial and stood for several minutes in silence. The note attached to the bouquet bore only 2 words: "Thank you." It was almost noon when she returned to London. William was waiting in the drawing room. He looked at her for a moment, as though trying to find words that no longer fit. "You went," he said finally. She nodded. He exhaled. "Thank you." That same afternoon, rumours spread that Meghan was preparing to clarify the controversy on a podcast. Nothing official was announced, But even the speculation was enough to reignite tabloid frenzy. The Daily Mail ran a headline, "Will she speak again?" William ignored it. He spent that evening reading to his children in the nursery, a rare moment of normalcy in a week defined by controlled chaos. One aide said later, "It was the first time anyone heard him laugh in days." Ugh. Night fell over Kensington with the same quiet unease. The city beyond the gates moved on to new scandals, new stories, but inside, time seemed to stall. The air felt heavy with the memory of what hadn't been said. At 11 that night, Catherine passed William's study and saw the blue light of a screen. He was watching the same video again, the same 24 seconds. She stood at the door but didn't enter. "You'll dream of it if you keep looking," she said. He turned to her and answered, "Maybe I already do." Outside, rain began again, tapping softly against the windows. In the dark hallways of Kensington, staff moved quietly, aware that silence had become a kind of ritual, both shield and sentence. Across the ocean, the video continued to play. It needed no caption now. The world had written its own. By dawn, the press began calling the palace's strategy the Royal Cold War. It was accurate enough. The freeze had worked in public, but privately, the damage was permanent. In the quiet hours before sunrise, as the palace prepared for the day ahead, one truth lingered like fog over the gardens. Reconciliation wasn't merely postponed, it was buried. The brothers no longer fought, they no longer spoke. And in that silence, something colder than anger had taken hold. Acceptance. Because sometimes, the hardest break isn't made by words. It's made by the refusal to say them. October 8, 2025. 1 week after the video that fractured the royal family, the gates of Kensington Palace opened under a pale grey sky. A light mist hung over the courtyard, where cameras were already waiting. The occasion was solemn but deliberate, the Diana Legacy Initiative. Every detail had been chosen with care. White lilies lined the stage. The air smelled faintly of rain and polish. A soft instrumental of Candle in the Wind drifted through the hall. Nothing about the scene was accidental. It was not a tribute, it was a statement. Inside, William dressed in silence. Catherine pinned a small brooch to his lapel, the same gold piece Diana had worn during her last UNICEF trip. She adjusted it gently and said, "Today is hers." William looked at her through the mirror. "It's always been hers," he answered. At 10:45, they stepped out together. The applause that met them was quiet, respectful, restrained. There were no shouted questions, no chaos, no mention of the video still looping endlessly online. The palace had won back control, not through power, but through composure. Inside the hall, rows of guests waited. Charity founders, hospital workers, former staff who had once walked beside Diana. Children from her earliest projects sat in the front row, clutching white roses. When William reached the lectern, the room fell completely still. He paused for a long moment before speaking, long enough for the silence itself to feel sacred. "My mother believed that compassion was not a gesture, but a duty. She taught my brother and me that dignity comes not from titles or fame, but from how we treat others when the world isn't watching." No one breathed. "Her story is not a story of tragedy," he continued. "It is a story of courage, of a woman who turned pain into purpose and who taught us that grief must never be performed for applause. It was not an attack. It didn't need to be. Every sentence was a mirror, reflecting what the last week had become: spectacle versus sincerity, memory versus noise. In an age where everything is shared, she remains proof that the quiet act of kindness still matters. This initiative is not commemoration, it is continuation." The speech lasted 7 minutes. There was no grand crescendo, no royal flourish. When he finished, the audience rose, not to clap, but to stand in silence. A minute stretched into 2. Only then did the applause begin, soft and slow. Outside, reporters scrambled to rewrite their scripts. William restores dignity, one headline read. Another simply said, he spoke for her. The clip of his speech spread faster than the scandal itself. Within hours, it trended worldwide under a single phrase, "Number for Diana." At Montecito, the video on Meghan's page was still there. But the tone of the comments had changed. Thousands now linked William's speech, writing, "This is what grace looks like." The digital storm that had begun with her had now turned its light toward him. That night, Kensington was quiet again. Catherine entered the study where William was watching the broadcast replay. He looked older than a week before, but lighter. "You were right," he said. "Legacy speaks louder than anger. She smiled faintly. "It always does." They stood by the window for a while, watching the lights of the city flicker through the rain. London had begun to breathe again, a little slower, a little steadier. For the first time in months, public sentiment had turned not toward controversy, but respect. Donations to Diana's charities rose by 20% in a single day. Letters poured in from across the Commonwealth, nurses, teachers, families who remembered her kindness. The palace had not issued a statement, nor needed to. The speech had spoken for them. In the days that followed, the machinery of monarchy returned to rhythm. Press schedules resumed, public duties restarted. The scandal that had once seemed endless began to dissolve, replaced by something colder but cleaner. Silence restored. Still, those close to William noticed a change, the weight in his posture, the way he paused before interviews. A senior aide later said, he carried himself differently after that. Calmer, yes, but also harder, like a man who had chosen what not to forgive. Harry did not attend the legacy event. No official invitation had been sent. The brothers did not speak again, but in public, neither attacked the other. The war had ended, not in surrender, but in exhaustion. One evening, Catherine returned to the gallery after everyone had gone. The photograph of Diana holding her two young sons hung under a soft golden light. Beneath it, fresh roses had been placed by guests, simple, white, perfect. She stood there for a long time before whispering, "She'd be proud of you." Back in his study, William reviewed the footage once more. Not the video that caused the storm, but the one that quieted it, his own speech. He turned the volume low, listening not to his voice, but to the silence after it. "It's strange," he said to Catherine as she joined him, "how peace can sound like grief." She rested a hand on his shoulder. "That's what legacy feels like." Outside, the rain had stopped. The reflection of Kensington's lights rippled across the cobblestones. London slept beneath the weight of a story it thought it understood, unaware that within the palace walls, the heir had already moved on to something larger, duty beyond damage. The scandal had been absorbed into history, the same way all royal crises eventually are, not forgotten, just folded neatly into the narrative. For William, that was enough. For Catherine, it was victory. And for the world watching, it was a reminder that in the House of Windsor, the loudest statement is often the one never spoken. Thank you for watching this special documentary episode, The Heir's Fury, the Paris video scandal. And if this story moved you, if you believe legacy should be protected over spectacle, take a moment now to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Every week, we bring you deeper insight, verified sources, and the untold side of royal history. Support independent storytelling. Stay informed, stay critical. Subscribe now, because in the world of power and image, silence is never just silence. It's the message itself.